billion. Go ahead, now off topic.
On the Epstein files, does the new investigation by the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney prevent the department from releasing all of the remaining files?
So we have released over 33,000 Epstein documents to the Hill, and we'll continue to follow the law and to have maximum transparency. Also, we will always encourage all victims to come forward.
What are the next steps, Madam Attorney General, for the DOJ regarding what we assume President Trump will sign into law with the Epstein files? Is this going to be on the Justice Department website? What are you doing here over the next 30 days as we understand it?
We will continue to follow the law with maximum transparency while protecting victims.
Okay, so Attorney General Pam Bondi is facing serious impeachment threats even though Congress hasn't actually launched a formal impeachment proceeding yet. This is one of those situations where the political dynamics are moving fast, and the talk has intensified to the point where impeachment articles have already been drafted and could be introduced at any time if circumstances shift. Let me walk you through exactly where this stands and why it matters. Representative Mark Vesey, a Democrat from Texas, has prepared impeachment articles targeting both Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel. These aren't vague threats or political posturing. Vesey has actually written up formal articles of impeachment accusing both officials of lying to Congress and weaponizing law enforcement for political purposes. The articles are drafted and ready to be introduced if Vesey decides the political timing is right. That's further than most impeachment threats ever get. The accusations that Vesey's articles focus on include lying about the Epstein files and the botched announcement in the Charlie Kirk shooting case. Vesey has publicly stated that Bondi and Patel actually lied, not just misled or gave incomplete answers, but outright lied about key matters during congressional testimony and in public statements. Those are serious allegations that go directly to whether these officials can be trusted to lead the Justice Department and FBI. On the Epstein files specifically, Vesey alleges that Bondi made promises about releasing case files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and associates, but then failed to follow through on those promises. The public has been demanding transparency about the Epstein case for years. Bondi apparently told Congress or the public that files would be released, but then didn't release them or released heavily redacted versions that concealed more than they revealed. If Bondi promised transparency and then deliberately withheld information, that could constitute lying to Congress depending on the specific statements she made and whether they were under oath. On the Charlie Kirk case, Vesey points to Patel's premature announcement that someone was in custody for the attempted assassination when that turned out to involve the wrong person. We discussed this in the previous section about Patel's hearings. But Vesey's impeachment articles apparently allege this wasn't just an honest mistake. It was deliberate deception designed to make the FBI look more competent than it actually was in handling a high-profile case. Whether that rises to the level of lying to Congress depends on what specifically Patel said and whether he knew the information was false when he said it. The broader accusation of weaponizing law enforcement is what ties these specific incidents together into a pattern that Vesey argues warrant impeachment. Weaponizing law enforcement means using the Justice Department and FBI as political tools rather than as independent agencies that enforce laws fairly. If Bondi and Patel are making decisions based on political loyalty rather than evidence and law, that's a fundamental corruption of their responsibilities. That's the kind of abuse of power that impeachment is designed to address. Democrats in both the House and Senate are described as girding for war with Bondi. That's strong language that suggests this isn't just one rogue member's personal crusade. There's broader Democratic support for holding Bondi accountable through aggressive oversight and potentially through impeachment. Senators are openly talking about the need to hold her accountable for various alleged abuses. The question is whether that talk translates into actual impeachment proceedings or stays at the level of oversight hearings and political criticism. The specific allegations that Democrats are focusing on beyond just Epstein and Kirk include politicizing DOJ, firing career officials, dismantling anti-corruption units, and shielding Trump allies while targeting his enemies. Each of those represents a different aspect of what Democrats argue is systematic abuse of the Attorney General's authority to serve Trump's political interests rather than the rule of law. Let's break those down because they're serious charges. Politicizing DOJ means making prosecutorial decisions based on political considerations rather than evidence and law. If Bondi is directing prosecutors to pursue cases against Trump's enemies or to drop cases against Trump's allies based on their political affiliations rather than on the legal merits, that's politicization. The Justice Department is supposed to be independent. Attorneys general serve the Constitution and the law, not the president's political interests. Evidence of systematic politicization would be strong grounds for impeachment. Firing career officials refers to the removal of experienced Justice Department personnel who aren't political appointees. Career officials are supposed to be protected from political purges so they can do their jobs without fear of retaliation for making decisions based on law rather than politics. If Bondi is firing career prosecutors or other DOJ employees because they're not sufficiently loyal to Trump or because they pursued cases against Trump allies, that's destroying DOJ independence. Similar to the allegations against Patel at FBI, this is about turning law enforcement into a political operation. Dismantling anti-corruption units is particularly concerning if true. The Justice Department has specialized units that investigate and prosecute corruption by government officials and others in positions of power. If Bondi is dismantling those units, the obvious question is why. Is it because they're not effective? Or is it because they were investigating corruption that might implicate Trump or his associates, and Bondi wants to shut down those investigations? Eliminating the mechanisms for investigating corruption looks like enabling corruption. Shielding Trump allies while targeting his enemies is the clearest form of weaponization. If DOJ is dropping cases against people Trump likes and pursuing cases against people Trump dislikes, that's using law enforcement as a political weapon. Equal justice under law means everyone is treated the same regardless of their political connections. Bondi allegedly treating Trump allies and enemies differently based on their relationship with Trump rather than on evidence violates that fundamental principle that's textbook abuse of power. The Senate oversight hearings where Bondi appeared provide crucial context for understanding why impeachment talk has intensified. Bondi's behavior during those hearings was apparently so aggressive and inappropriate that even some Republicans privately expressed discomfort, though most publicly defended her. Let me describe what actually happened because it matters for assessing whether impeachment is justified. Bondi used a Senate oversight hearing to personally attack Democratic senators, including Adam Schiff, Richard Blumenthal, and Sheldon Whitehouse. These aren't just vigorous defenses of her record or pushback against criticism. These were personal attacks on senators' character and credibility. Critics are calling this unprecedented behavior for an attorney general. Attorneys general are supposed to maintain dignity and professionalism even under hostile questioning. The attacks on Adam Schiff are particularly notable because Schiff is one of Trump's most prominent critics and led the first impeachment against Trump. Bondi apparently went after Schiff personally during the hearing in ways that looked like settling scores on Trump's behalf rather than defending DOJ policies on the merits. When the Attorney General uses oversight hearings to attack Trump's political enemies, that reinforces concerns about DOJ being weaponized. It looks like Bondi sees her role as defending Trump rather than defending the Constitution. The attacks on Richard Blumenthal and Sheldon Whitehouse, both senior Democratic senators with extensive experience in oversight and law enforcement issues, similarly cross lines of professional conduct. You can vigorously defend your decisions and push back on criticism without personally attacking the senators asking questions. Bondi apparently chose the latter approach. That combative, Trumpian style might play well with the MAGA base, but it's terrible for DOJ's institutional relationships with Congress. The fact that some Republicans privately expressed discomfort suggests Bondi's behavior was so over the line that even members of her own party recognized it was inappropriate. Those Republicans won't say so publicly because they don't want to appear disloyal to Trump or invite primary challenges. But their private discomfort indicates Bondi violated norms that even partisan Republicans think should be maintained. When you lose Republicans on questions of basic professional conduct, you've gone too far. The GOP members who are largely defending Bondi publicly are doing so out of partisan loyalty and fear of Trump rather than because they genuinely believe her conduct is appropriate. This is the pattern we've seen repeatedly. Republicans know Trump and his appointees are violating norms and abusing power, but they defend them anyway because the political costs of opposing Trump are too high. That partisan protection is what makes impeachment unlikely even when it might be warranted on the merits. The current status of impeachment efforts against Bondi reveals the gap between what Democrats want to do and what they can actually accomplish given political realities and internal divisions about strategy. VC's impeachment drafts have not yet become a full House-backed impeachment inquiry. This is similar to the situation we discussed earlier with impeachment articles against Trump. Individual members can draft articles, but that doesn't mean party leadership will support moving forward with formal proceedings. Democratic leadership has to calculate whether impeachment serves their political interests or whether it's a distraction and potential liability. Right now, leadership appears to be holding off on formal impeachment while keeping it as an option. The broader partisan escalation where both parties float impeachments and censures against opponents has created an environment where these threats are common, but most never reach a floor vote. Republicans threaten to impeach various Biden administration officials. Democrats are threatening to impeach Trump administration officials. Both sides use impeachment talk as political messaging and pressure tactics. But the reality is that impeachment is hard, time-consuming, and often backfires politically. The fact that articles are already written is significant, though. It means if circumstances change, if there's a major new scandal, if public pressure builds, if the political calculation shifts, Democrats could move quickly to introduce and vote on impeachment articles. VC has done the work of drafting the articles, so the mechanism is ready to deploy. That keeps Bondi under constant threat, even if formal proceedings haven't started yet. The growing outrage over Bondi's handling of Epstein, Comey investigations, and Trump-directed prosecutions provides the substantive basis for impeachment. These aren't manufactured controversies. There are real questions about whether Bondi has abused her authority, politicized the Justice Department, and used law enforcement to serve Trump's interests rather than to enforce laws fairly. If evidence of those abuses continues to accumulate, impeachment pressure will intensify. The question of whether Democrats gain or coordinate enough power in Congress is crucial. Right now, Democrats don't control either chamber, so they can't unilaterally move impeachment forward. But if they gain seats in the next election, or if they can convince some Republicans to join impeachment efforts based on particularly egregious conduct, the political dynamics change. Impeachment becomes realistic only if Democrats have the votes. The calculation about when or whether to pull the trigger on impeachment involves weighing multiple factors. Does impeachment energize the Democratic base and hold officials accountable, or does it distract from other priorities and hand Republicans a political weapon to claim partisan persecution? Does the evidence support impeachment strongly enough to convince persuadable voters, or will it look like political theater? Democratic leadership is making those calculations right now. So where does this leave us? Pam Bondi is under serious impeachment threat with draft articles already prepared alleging that she lied to Congress and weaponized law enforcement. Democrats are preparing for confrontation over her politicization of DOJ, firing of career officials, dismantling of anti-corruption units, and differential treatment of Trump allies versus enemies. But formal impeachment proceedings haven't started yet because leadership is still calculating whether and when to move forward. That's the accurate picture based on what's actually happening versus exaggerated claims about impeachment already being underway. The impeachment crosshairs are real. The anger over Epstein files, the Comey investigation, and Trump-directed prosecutions is genuine and growing. The draft articles exist and could be introduced quickly if the political moment arrives. But we're not there yet in terms of formal House action. This is an impeachment threat in development, not an impeachment proceeding in progress. The distinction matters for understanding where things actually stand while recognizing that the threat is serious and could materialize into actual proceedings if Bondi's conduct provides additional grounds or if political circumstances shift to make impeachment more viable. For now, it's a standoff, Democrats with impeachment articles ready, Republicans defending Bondi out of partisan loyalty, and Bondi continuing the aggressive, combative approach that makes her a lightning rod for criticism, but that also rallies Trump's base. How this resolves depends on political developments we can't predict yet. But the impeachment threat is real enough that Bondi has to govern knowing that Democrats are watching for any additional evidence of abuse that could be used to justify formal proceedings. That's a form of accountability even without actual impeachment. The threat creates constraints on how brazenly officials can abuse their authority. Whether those constraints are sufficient to prevent the kind of DOJ politicization that Democrats allege is happening remains to be seen. But the impeachment talk isn't empty political rhetoric. It's backed by draft articles, serious allegations, and real anger over conduct that Democrats believe warrants removal from office if they can build the political support to make it happen. Retry.